I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will now introduce our board members. With us virtually is Jonathan Henderson. We also have Mike Rowley, Madeline DeMaintenon, Tasha Woods, and I am Chester Jason White. We are also joined by Superintendent Ginger Haber and our Executive Director of Student Services, Kelly Kronbauer. Haber. Kim is on Zoom. Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Kim. Kim Snyder, our Executive Director of Finance and Operation, is on Zoom. We also have one of our student representatives here, Josephine Schneppner. I screwed it up, didn't I? Schneppner. There we go. Okay. Names, they're important. Okay, so board, first off, we have the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
I second.
All right, Mike has moved that we approve the consent agenda and Madeline has seconded. Board, any discussion? Then I'll call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I heard Jonathan. So any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Then the consent agenda is approved. I've lost my agenda. All right, so next up, we have the superintendent's report.
All right, board. Well, we have some real special guests here with us tonight. And to start out with, I'd love for Joan Smith to come on up to the mic. We just really appreciate her and her multiple years and expertise with our life skills program at Morgan. And she has a special entrepreneurial program that she runs. And we're so excited to have students here as well. Joan.
About me. I got you right here. Thanks. I've been a teacher for about 27 years. Most of that time has been teaching students with moderate and significant disabilities as well as autism. And I've been in this district since 2007. And ever since I've been here, and even before I came here, one of the components of a job that happened in my classroom at Morgan was a business. We had a business called Tiger Town, where we purchased items, bought and sold taco salads that we ended up delivering all across the entire district. And it actually became a really huge endeavor. When we went through our remodel and we had to move into the shop room, we had to stop Tiger Town because we didn't have access to a kitchen. When we moved into our beautiful new building, we decided to do something a little bit different. And we started making paninis that we sold in our classroom. Did that for a couple of years. COVID hit. We were no longer going to be, at least, in the fall of 2020, selling food items for folks. So we transitioned to Bulldog Bites, and we made dog biscuits that we sold. That business also became super, super huge. And we were looking for a change. So we started doing what we call PLC popcorn. But all of that is part of what I can call vocational education. So if you could go ahead and switch that slide for me. I'm a very strong believer in that outside of academics, part of my job is to create humans that can live and function in society. This is Bailey, and this is Jillian. Both of these young ladies are part of my vocational program. And so you can see up here kind of where I focus. You notice you don't see the word popcorn up there at all, because the popcorn business is what we use. That's Arabic. She actually has self-taught herself some Arabic, and I don't know what she's saying. I have no idea. But these are the components of vocational education that we teach and hope to instill in students in our program. PLC popcorn is one of our most popular endeavors, and one of my students here, we took some pictures this week showing her making some popcorn bags, and just kind of an overview of what we do. We are a part of the business. These kids are part of the business from the beginning to the end. They take the orders, they organize the orders, they deliver the orders, every single thing in between, including, learning a little bit about some hygiene and get to have a little fun with the craft of decorating bags. Some other things that we do in our vocational education classes, recycling business, where we collect all of the recycling from all the classrooms in the school. The kids have to, it's not just like a teacher taking kids around and telling them what to do. The kids have a list of every single classroom they're supposed to go to. Somebody's in charge of that list. They check it off if they've emptied that. They circle it if they need to come back. It's not just a repetitious job. Kids have to really think about what they're doing and analyze what they've done and make plans for how to get that job finished. If, for instance, the teacher's door is locked and they can't go in and they have to come back. So there's a list. You can go ahead and flip that. Thank you. We incorporate a lot of math into this job because we collect money from the teachers. They are making a donation to the program. We have a revolving resale account. So the money that the teachers donate to us for our popcorn bags gets used to purchase our supplies. And the kids do all of it. They take in the orders. They have created spreadsheets for every single teacher. So they add in the money that the teachers give us. They subtract every time they make a purchase. We also use paper money, green and red. So each teacher has a box that is their bank account. Can you get her? Yep. Thank you. Has a box that is their bank account. Kids know that the red dollars mean that teacher is going to be getting notice soon that they owe us some money. And the kids are able, Jillian, do you use my calculator when you're doing accounting? Usually? Sometimes using a calculator. So there's lots of pieces to this business. A few other things that we do general cleaning around the building. Some things that we use electronic tools such as pencil sharpeners. I can hook those up to switches for students that have real significant disabilities that maybe don't have a lot of control over their movements, but they can push a switch and they can run the popcorn popper, the pencil sharpener, anything that we are running that is electronic. So it's really cool. Every single student in my class is involved in this project. We also make all of the ice packs for our entire building. So because I don't know if you've ever been in a school with ice packs, they're everywhere and they're expensive. So we just make them with the free ice we get out of the staff room. So just a few pictures on here. We've got Bailey decorating a bag. She's like this all. She's so happy, so happy. In the middle picture, you can see, again, this is not a teacher directed activity. There is a book, a manual for how to make popcorn, and the kids follow that manual with guidance from the teachers. So everything is really set up to ensure as much independence on the kids' part as possible. I'm teaching, hopefully, these kids how to enter a work site and follow a list of directions that they're going to do. Aprons, got a few more pictures. A couple of these girls setting up all the different popcorn flavors, working together to fill the popcorn. And I have just 2 more slides to show you. Oh, 3 more. There's just a few more. You can see happy Jill Pennington getting her popcorn. They're graded. So it's not, again, it's really is trying to be, thanks, Michelle. Like a paycheck. So this is their paycheck and they get graded on behaviors. I don't care if they learn how to make popcorn. I want them to show us behaviors that are going to make them employable in the future. So this is an example of a student in the fall wasn't necessarily doing so well with some of the behavior expectations, but this was last week. And you can see this young person went from 7 points to 10 points on what he has been learning about how to behave on a job site. And so then I just have a couple more pictures. There we go. Happy kids. And what we have, okay, Jillian, now to you. You want to hold the bag or pass it? Hold? Okay, we brought you some popcorn. Great. So then you will like decide what flavors you want. Thanks, Jillian.
Thank you, Joan, and thank you all. That was wonderful.
Thank you so, so much. Next, we have another special treat with Ms. Shannon Panatoni, our CTE Director, to tell us more about our partnership with Habitat for Humanity.
Good evening. I have a crowd with me tonight. I'll give some introductions in just a second. So over the summer, I had an email an email from Kelly Vandenberg from Habitat for Humanity with the option to meet, and that they had a partnership they wanted to talk to us about. And so I brought with me tonight Rob Bales, who is the construction site supervisor, Taylor Wilson, our skilled and technical teacher. I have Aiden Schnazi. Close enough, sorry. One of our students, as well as Corbin Hager behind me. And then on my left is Kelly Vandenberg, the area director for Habitat for Humanity. Leslie, thank you. And so during our meeting during the summer, it consisted of Rob, myself, and Kelly. Bo Snow was also there, and we talked about their Stuart Meadows project that they just broke ground for. Rob or Kelly, would you like to explain that project a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Microphone. That's enough. Huh? So we were gifted a 3-acre parcel of land from the city of Ellensburg and a donation from your sales tax dollars from the 2017 sales tax. And that purchased those 3 acres and started our 18-home affordable housing neighborhood called Stuart Meadows. It'll be at the end of Water, where Water and Bender meet up. In fact, we'll be extending Water Street out, but we'll help over 80 people within our community, and those people will help build these homes. So, yeah.
So over the 3-year project that they have, they asked us if our wood shop would like to partake in helping build the sheds that go on these lots with the homes. And so for each year, they will be, our kids will be building 6 sheds to support the 6 houses that they're building for this year. And the partnership will continue for the next 2 years as they finish this 3-year project. And when we met, the Habitat for Humanity was gracious enough to help us with marketing and advertising our partnership. And so if you went to the high school right now and walked in the main doors, right above the doors is this banner that we created, just explaining that we're building the future together and partnerships equal future leaders. And so we are glad to have this partnership. And Leslie, I'll have you go to the next slide as well. And so here are some great student opportunities through this new partnership. Not only will the students be building 6 sheds, they will also be part of being able to go on site to help with the pouring of the foundation and helping set those sheds on those properties. And so what an experience where they will be gaining real work experience, on the job training skills, contributing members to our community, participating in those field trips in the stages of construction so they can actually see that as the process goes on. And what a great opportunity to make connections with our community members and industries within the community. The other aspect or the other skills that they will be gaining, they're doing blueprint reading right now, reading tape measures and actually measuring accurate dimensions, which you will be seeing here in a minute on a couple pictures. They'll be learning the framing and the pouring of the concrete, various power tools, obviously problem solving and working as a team. Would you guys like to add anything else on that? Okay. Next slide, please. If you didn't notice in the Daily Record a couple weeks ago, there was an article in the paper. And so these, I have to make sure I acknowledge that these photos are from Rodney Harwood at the Daily Record. But these are the kids in action and the kids that started framing the sides of these sheds and are working in our shops. The sheds are being built on site in our shop, and so they will also learn how to transport these items to the sites as well to build them on the site. Okay, and I have asked for the students behind me if they would come up and just share their experience so far.
Nice.
And what they're excited about. Aiden?
You want rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah. I've had a great time building the sheds, and so far all I've met is Rob from Habitat for Humanity, but I'm happy to meet other people once we start going out and on field trips and stuff. And yeah, it's interesting to see the different ways people build things, because my dad's a carpenter, but it's cool to see the actual way people are meant to do it.
My dad is also a carpenter, which I've been out on jobs with him. That's where I learned how to do stuff, but I think it's fun teaching other people really the useful skills for that profession, and just getting an opportunity like this from Habitat is really a great way to do that.
This is a great opportunity for us. It definitely running and starting a construction program is difficult because you want to get hammer swinging going on as much as possible, but what do you do with the product when you're done? You got to sell it, you got to move it, you got to do something with it, and that's difficult. So this kind of checks all the boxes for us, and
gives the kids an opportunity to not only build it in the classroom so they can come for the period and do it, whereas otherwise we got to get a bus and do a field trip just for by the time you get the tools out, you got to put them away and come on back. So we can do all this and set it all up, and then we can actually take a longer field trip and go and assemble and pour and do that with, and hopefully out of the 150 or so kids we have in class, I'm hoping everybody gets at least one field trip experience out of it and gets to go up and help out and see the progress. So, yeah, thank you.
So for us, we're in this for the long haul, right? Stuart Meadows is a 3-year project. We have other projects that are percolating in the pipeline now, and building mentorships and having mentorship programs is building community. And that is really what we're looking for out of this, is to continue that community building. And I have one ask tonight, and you guys don't know this yet, but we have a longstanding Habitat tradition. When you build something for Habitat, when you put your heart into it and you're building something, we ask that you sign what you build and leave a well wish for that family that will be enjoying the work that you have done and your labor. So as you guys are building these sheds, I want you to reach and write onto the walls and write onto the studs a message to the families. And I welcome all the school board to do that.
So this has been a great opportunity to partner with Habitat for Humanity, not only for the field trips and the on-site and the job skills that these kids are going to be learning, but also the expertise that is being brought into the classroom, as Rob has come in many times as a guest speaker for them and to assist the students as well. Any questions?
You know, I have comments. This is so incredibly relevant, and I want to desperately ask the students more questions, but I totally get that you don't want to really speak. I guess my question would be to you, and you don't have to answer this, is do you think that there should be more classes or pathways like this in the high school? So you can think about that if you want to answer that. But this is exactly what the board ends and what we mean by a relevant education, where kids and students and teachers give back to our community and build it, because we don't have to wait until we're 18, and you don't just matter when you're 21, and they're not just job skills, they're life skills, and you're building the future. And the connections to Habitat are incredible. So thank you to everyone involved in this. And if we can get more of this in every single thing, because when we talk about, hey, I got an A in math, or hey, I built that shed over there in Stuart Meadows, which one's cooler?
My answer would be yes. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Absolutely. Great work.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. That we were going to have Lincoln come, and I think that there's just some circumstances there, so we'll be able to have them come a little bit later. And just want to just encourage the board again, another important partnership, and it's on our agenda for a formal vote for the board, is the partnership that we have right now with the city and CWU in promoting that sense of belonging in the Burg, we're calling it, for our World Cafe this Saturday. It's from 3 to 5 at Hal Holmes, and just encourage you, if you're able, to join. And of course, our community teachers, our high school students, it's open. We just encourage people to come. It's going to be a real informal cafe kind of ambiance where people will be sitting in small groups. There'll be some specific questions around belonging. Everybody will use the talking stick protocol. Everybody will have a chance to weigh in and kind of share their and what their story is around those different questions. And they'll have a chance to share out with the whole group. So we're super excited. And we know that through dialogue and that civil discourse, we can really unify ourselves more as a community and really better understand each other's perspectives. So encourage you to come if you're able to do that. And that's the end of my board report.
All right. Thanks, Ginger. Josephine, do we have a student report?
Yes, thank you. So for the student report this week, we had our second student senate meeting on yesterday. Okay, wow. We had our second student senate meeting yesterday. And before the meeting, we met with Mrs. Neboychik and we created a survey using questions that the superintendent wanted us to ask around attendance that we could share with the student senate to get their intake on attendance. And then depending on their feedback, we could possibly send it out to more people as well within the school. But questions we asked were, what could be done to encourage students to attend school more regularly? What could ESD change to increase student attendance? And what are the reasons you come to school? What are some reasons you might avoid coming to school? And we really wanted to leave it open-ended so that you just get straight student feedback and they have the opportunity to voice their opinions. And we briefly discussed the meeting in class, but ultimately with the survey, we wanted them to take it because we don't really have that much time with our meetings. So we wanted that data to be able to be sent to the superintendent so she can analyze it. But we briefly discussed it during the meeting. And some of the things that were discussed for why students don't come to school are because they're falling so behind or struggling so much they feel hopeless. Online school made it so that it was easier to cheat and take shortcuts for some, and some just got used to it and it worked better for them. So that led to a lack of motivation to come to school and not understanding the importance of student connection that occurs at school. We discussed having problems with mental health or family and not wanting to communicate those personal problems. So it's easier to just stay home and fall behind rather than admit that something's not right or something like that. We discussed that some people just need a mental health day. So they just take a day off to recover. Sometimes it's easier to get work done at home, and getting a lot of work or feeling anxious and overwhelmed. And then instead of being able to work through it, just kind of curling up in a ball and wanting to quit instead. So we also discussed some things that we thought could be done about this. And we talked about a universal late policy that could bring consistency throughout classrooms. The students talked about how they have some teachers who let them turn in late work and some teachers who don't, and they have different timelines for that, and it can be kind of confusing to keep track of. Another thing that was discussed and that students were pretty adamant about was that if kids are willing to turn in work, let them turn it in, even if it's late, because at least they're still willing to put the work in. Students also appreciate it when teachers are caring and understanding, because we're all human. We all struggle with different things and we all make mistakes. Access to more time with tutors who know what they're doing was also discussed. And then more time with teachers or teachers who are willing to repeat themselves to help students. Because oftentimes a student doesn't understand what a teacher is saying or isn't paying attention and they miss it. And a lot of times the teacher's response is, well, you should have been paying attention, but that doesn't help the student to actually learn what's happening in the classroom. And another thing that was discussed was having teachers who are willing to repeat themselves, but also in a different way to help the student understand, instead of just repeating themselves in the same way over and over again, and the student still doesn't understand it. After that, we split them up into 4 groups of 3 based off of their name alphabetically. We wanted it to be random because we're trying to get, the goal is we have people from different cliques in the student senate. And so we're trying to get them to work together and learn how to work together. And so we split them up into groups randomly, and we had them discuss various ideas that we could use as a focal point for the student senate, because we really want to have a project. And we kept the subjects pretty vague. We wanted them to expand on it and be more specific so we could get a feel for what they want. And the subjects included mental health, school culture in regards to enrichment, diversification, or celebration, inclusion and diversity within curriculum and activities, communication, teacher-student connection, student-student connection, and then disability services, understanding and awareness. And what we did is we had them write what they talked about on a piece of paper and they handed that to us, and we're going to analyze that and try and get a general feel for what people want to do. After the meeting, we had some students come up to us and they discussed how they want to do more with the Student Senate, because we only meet once a month. So that doesn't, and it's only during lunch for a half hour. So it doesn't provide a lot of opportunities. So they are hoping that we can maybe have more meetings more often. Another thing that was discussed is instead of just doing one project, because obviously there's a lot of problems and a lot of things that could be made better, is doing multiple projects. So something we talked about was splitting us up into little groups, different groups, and it's like having each group have a project that they work on, and then the groups would meet more often, and then we'd come together as a whole and everyone would talk about what they're doing and we could discuss that way. But so that's the Student Senate and it's going pretty well. Another thing I wanted to talk about was All Nationals. I was able to go to All Nationals for my trumpet. I just got back Monday night and it was really awesome. It was intense. It was me and 2 other students and we had 8-hour rehearsals with breaks in between, and we got to have guest speakers and we got to work with some really well-known music educators who are really good. And then we had a performance at the end and it was awesome to witness all the different talents. There was so much talent. It was insane. It was just a super cool thing to be a part of. But I wanted to share some of the leadership things I got out of that. We had our first guest speaker kind of talked about a trifecta of working and getting students to work and stuff. And it was, if you work hard, you do good and then you have fun, or it could be reversed. If you have fun, you work hard and then you do good. And with that, there's 3 levels of motivation. There's, I have to, I get to, and I want to, and each one, obviously the motivation increases. He had us play a card game, and playing the card game, I was kind of like, it was kind of cheesy, to participate in, but the message that came out of it was really cool. He had us take a card and place it on our head without looking at it, like just from a deck of cards. And we walked around and we had to ask each other questions to try and figure out what the card was. So, and then he had like subjects for the cards. So if you had a 1, or if you had an ace or a face card, you were like super popular. And if you had a 2 or a 3 or a lower card, you weren't very popular at all. And you were supposed to go around and ask questions, and people would tell you. So like, if I walked across someone who had a 2, I would say something like, you seem lonely, like, do you need any friends or something like that? And if you walked across someone with a higher card, you would say, so just little comments like that. And then from there, we had other like groupings. The black cards, if you had a black card, you were rich. And if you had a red card, you were poor. So you would walk around and you would say things like, you would ask for money and someone would be like, I'm not giving you money. Can I have some money from you instead? And then that would kind of clue you into the fact that you had a higher card. And something that was noticed with this game was that once you had a 2, and especially a red 2, you kind of sat down and you weren't having fun because people weren't saying nice things to you and you were obviously poor and it wasn't going well for you. And people who had higher cards ended up congregating together because they all had a lot. And it was interesting to see how that happened and how that reflects how people act in reality. And a lesson that we got out of that was that it's important to find the red 2s out there, the people who are struggling more, and help them to feel like they're more important and help them become higher cards, I guess. It was really cool just to break that grouping and the cliques and stuff that happen and how people often group together. Another guest speaker we had, his name was Franklin Willis, and he works with the CMA, the Country Music Association. And some really cool takeaways we got from him. And something that I really loved was that through high school, we're often told and prepared for jobs in the real world and what we need to do when we're older and have this plan set and where we're going to college and with the high school and beyond plan and stuff. But something that he really stressed was it's not about what we want to be when we grow up, it's who we want to be when we grow up. And the rest kind of falls into line with that. And he talked about the importance of music and a teacher's ability to help and inspire their students to be better. And something my friends and I took away from that was really cool is to have just having teachers who have the ability to inspire people like that, to say, oh, I want to be a teacher because you make it seem amazing, is something that we don't run into a lot. And it would be cool to run into that more, to have more of that enthusiasm and teachers like showing kids that like the importance of having fun and enjoying what you're doing and making the education more interesting, I guess, and more inspiring for us to want to follow in their footsteps instead of them just teaching us what we have to learn. And then something that I thought was also really cool was my conductor, he had us ask questions. We were allowed to ask him any question we wanted. And someone said, what was one piece of advice you would give us? And his response was to just be knowledgeable. And he expanded on that and he said that it's important to learn what's going on in the world. So when you're talking to other people, you can actually have a conversation and not just talk about work or school, or you can dive deeper. And he talked about how it's important to be genuine people and like take the time to talk to others and check in with people. And I thought that was a really cool message. And I think all of those things could be reflected in education more and seen and emphasized more. I think they're often things that get looked over. And it would be cool to see those types of things incorporated into education more. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you, board. Thank you, board. Any questions or comment?
I'm going to build off what I told those other two students that were here. You don't have to wait until you're 18 to change the world. The willingness and urgency that you three leaders who sit here and the other people involved in your students' senate, the agenda and the topics that you are willing to jump into and wrestle within, I think, 20 minutes once a month, is awe-inspiring and a lesson in leadership. Because I think you're right. Sometimes adults are like, but what parking spots do you want to have and what prom decorations do you want, right? This generation has real problems and real issues that they want to tackle. And it's inspiring to the rest of us to remember to be willing to tackle them too, and to listen to you and to ask questions and to, I think, change what is happening, because the world has changed. And so just like the group that was here before, and just like you were sharing, it's that willingness and that urgency that is that leadership that shows up every single time when you're sitting at this meeting. And we adults have a lot to learn from that. So thank you.
Thanks again.
I think I would just add, I think Josephine, really kudos to our schools, all doing amazing events for Veterans Day. And I know that Mike and Tosh and I had a chance to go to the high school. And I thought you really demonstrated leadership at the end. When Josephine did taps on her trumpet, it was moving. I mean, I had tears. I saw veterans nearby that just had tears. And I think the way that you played it wasn't just like playing taps. I think you really put your heart into it. And I thought that was a real leadership moment for you too. So thank you for just really blessing us with your trumpet this morning, because it was very moving and inspirational as well.
Thank you. And thank you guys for coming to the assembly too. That was really special.
All right. Well, thank you. Board, that will take us into business. So we have 4 things listed. The first one is the City of Ellensburg and EST 401 interlocal agreement.
Yes, Kelly's been working really hard with the city and with CWU to put some interlocal agreements in place, especially around building rentals. So Kelly. I think,
Okay.
yes.
You had one with the World
did.
Cafe. You sure you'd want to talk about that or the equity agreement? I think I'll go first and then you go after. Okay, great.
They both have similar titles. So
Yes, we have a lot of interagency agreements to go over with you. So from the beginning of the year, from starting about August, I've started to work with both Central Washington University as well as the city of Ellensburg to come up with interagency agreements between the school district and those entities. We had older agreements. We've had agreements with both of those agencies. About 5 years ago, there had been, this was before I got here, there had been kind of an agreement for both sides to kind of between Central Washington University and the school district to kind of stop with the process that they had been following. Things had changed. There had been questions on Central's side in regards to how facilities would be distributed and how that would work, as well as then Ellensburg also had those same issues. And so they stepped back. I come in and I was unaware of this, but I quickly have realized we really need a new interlocal agreement. And so we sat down. I think you all have copies of it. There's a lot of just boilerplate information in here. So I'm going to make this real simple for you. I guess I'll start with the central one first.
two are yours.
Okay, great. So pretty much Central and Ellensburg School District have agreed to provide each other space at 25% of the cost. So if they're charging $100 per hour for a room, they're only going to charge us $25, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're cutting 75% of the fees down for both agencies to be able to utilize the facilities. They're willing to do this for the Lister Tennis Facility, the Aquatic Center, the Recreational Sports Complex, Nicholson Pavilion, Tomlinson Stadium, the soccer field, the baseball field, rugby pitch, and the Gary and Bobby Frederick Field, which is softball. And the school district is willing to do that with all of pretty much all of our facilities, mostly, and this is for actual recreational facilities. Okay, so the auxiliary gym at the high school, the main gym at the high school, Morgan Middle School's main and auxiliary gym, Valley View's elementary gym, Ida Nason's partial gym. We're hoping for that to be a full gym once we get the floor repaired. Lincoln's gym, and then Mount Stewart's new gym, as well as their auxiliary gym. And then I want to say there's maybe two more. Yep. Then we have the soccer field and the softball fields and Andrade football field and track. So all of those are basically the properties that we're willing to allow each other to use at 25% of the cost. Then there are things that are pretty standard, like on both sides of this agreement, if there is things beyond standard custodial or security, then we will pay for those things if they cost us an employee to manage that. But for standard, like for them to come in and just use the restrooms, we're not going to charge them for that. If they're going to use something that's going to require custodial beyond just standard usage, then we would charge them, and we would have that. And that's on both sides of the agreement. So there's lots of boilerplate information in here with Central. Pretty much the overarching is 25% rate for both sides. And that's, that we're absolutely supporting one another to share and to utilize property. And so I actually feel really positive about it. And I felt really good working with Stuart Thompson at Central Washington University. And I know that Ginger had met with the president in regards to this, and they very much want to be working collaborating with the district as well. And we're also doing them a large favor this year because, Nicholson Pavilion's under construction. And so they're heavily using our facilities right now, which we're happy to do. So that's nice. Any questions on Central?
The question I have is actually going to go towards the city as well. So
Yep.
Priority, I think I read in there, Ellensburg will have priority over their facilities unless they're not being used, then the city can request to use them or something like that. And likewise central. So like there are facilities. So
Yeah.
if central says, hey, we want to rent this from you, but we have a home basketball game.
Yeah.
I know Nick
Always.
is a different situation, but that's so.
Yeah, anything that we're doing that's related to school, anything relating to our kids always is ours first. We're not obligated. The only time really we're agreeing to do this with this agreement is if it's open. Okay. And so we have these agreements. These agreements do actually kind of help us prioritize. And when we look at it, I haven't talked about the city yet, but the city's agreement is going to actually kind of trump central a little bit. And the fact that we share facilities with the city and we don't technically share and reciprocate. We don't play sports on Central's property where we're utilizing each other and sharing property because we have shared interests with the city. So, but yes, our basic plan is anytime there is anything relating to the school function for students, we have the right to have the property. Yeah. So they would never be able to like kick us out of our own gym kind of thing. And we wouldn't do that to them either. Yeah, that's great. Any other questions on Central? Okay, so then the city, I've been working with Brad Case on that. He runs a lot of the city programming, and actually we're pretty excited after collaborating with Brad because that we've realized that there are some things that have historically happened in Ellensburg that we've allowed to happen for many, many years around community usage that's really becoming a challenge for us liability wise when it comes to people coming into our gyms and not having the liability coverage and so forth to support. But the city is going to help us do that with our community, which is going to be a great, I think, benefit for everybody. But the city agreement pretty much same boilerplate information, but the city is completely free. We're not charging the city. They're not charging us. Again, when they have a need for their property, they get it first. When we have a need for our property, we get it first, and then it fills around. The city will be prioritized, though, next when it comes to there's a lot of activities that they use our gyms for things like their after school programs or their volleyball programs, their park and rec programs. I mean, they use our gymnasiums as how they run those programs. We turn around and use their parks and their recreational fields, their baseball fields, their softball fields. We don't have them like they do. And so we actually play our league games on those. And we've talked about future collaboration around building maybe tennis courts together in the community. We use their swimming pool for our swim team and like Central School is down right now. So we're doing all of our stuff at the city. So, and that is all in this agreement that we're basically going to be trading back and forth. So it's really going to eliminate a lot of costs. We're not having to purchase or rent, which is great. So when we look at all of the usage, and I'm not going to go through all the boilerplate with you, the areas the city is basically willing to share with us is the Rotary Park, Irene Reinhardt Riverfront Park, Mountain View Park, Reeser Creek floodplain property, the North Alder Street Park, Kiwanis Park, Veterans Memorial Park, Paul Rogers Park, the Unity Park, Reed Park, Stan Bassett Youth Center, the Ellensburg Racket and Recreation Center, the Kittitas Valley Memorial Pool and Fitness Center, and the Ellensburg Skate Park. And then we have listed just our schools, each one of our schools and the facilities within them, mostly is for recreational, but we would also allow them to use classroom space, and they would allow us to use their larger rooms for events and things like that. And then it goes very detailed into all the rules around what each one of us does, and very specifically, even going down to what parks we're using what events for. So we've outlined that. So Morgan Middle School does youth and adult volleyball, youth and adult basketball. Lincoln Elementary does a Tiny Tot Sports. And then what will they do in the Tiny Tot Sports and what will we provide is very detailed for each one of their athletic programs as well as ours. Like when we go, what will they be providing us? and it's nice and clear, and we spend a lot of time on it. So I think it's a real positive thing that we have a relationship with the city that we can share property and minimize our costs. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
This is an action item for both of them, and I just appreciate the hard work that Kelly put into this, and the city and CWU. I think it's going to be really great to have those expectations really put in writing, and that way we can just, I think, continue to strengthen our relationship with them because all the expectations are in writing, and we all have a lot more clarity around that, I think, with these interlocal agreements.
It also provides opportunity, right? Because often it makes it clear that these things can happen. I really appreciate the work that was done in this because our community only stands to benefit by our agencies working together. So great work. Okay, board. There are two agreements. The first one will be with the city of Ellensburg, the interlocal agreement. It is an action item. Is there any other questions or discussion? Then I would entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the interlocal agreement with City of Ellensburg.
I second.
Okay, Mike has moved that we adopt the City of Ellensburg ESC 401 interlocal agreement, and Madeline has seconded. Any discussion? And I will call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, then we have approved. We've adopted that, that agreement. Sorry. Next one, interagency agreement with CWU and ESC 401. Any discussion? Any questions? It is an action item then.
I move that we adopt the agreement with the interagency agreement with CWU and ESD 401.
I second.
Okay, Mike has moved that we adopt the interagency agreement with CWU, and Madeline has seconded. Any board, any discussion? Then I will call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, then we have adopted the interagency agreement with CWU. Next on business, we have a memorandum of understanding with the City of Ellensburg School District and Central Washington University.
Yes.
That's right. Sorry, I was like, this is totally different. I just remembered what it was. Yes, sorry. Yep.
Just have a lot of great partnerships going this year, and we just appreciate our partners with CW and the city. And so I shared this same memorandum with you at the last meeting, and I think there was just one statement that we changed in there around promoting diversity, inclusion, and equity within our community through unifying us around belonging. And I had a chance to meet with Heidi from our city manager, and Dr. Wilpart reached out to us. He's really supports this effort. I think he's going to be there on Saturday as well. So he's excited about us having this World Cafe. Candy Cleary, our diversity and equity inclusion coordinator, or she's, I think, an executive director, vice president at CW, also met with her, with Heidi, and the three of us sat down and really looked at the language around this. And we're super excited. This isn't just a one-time event. We're hoping to continue to work together and meet regularly to see if this World Cafe goes well this time. Do we want to do it again? Do we want to have even a cultural event in Ellensburg where we invite different cultures to come together, and maybe partnering with the Fine Arts Commission? So there's a lot of possibilities, I think, with these three agencies working together. And so I'm excited that this could be an important first step in strengthening those partnerships. So would recommend the adoption of this MOU.
Thank you, Ginger. Board, any questions? Now, this is not our first time we've looked at this. We've been looking at this. So thank you for all the work that's been put in to make this happen. And yeah, that event is this Saturday. So the World Cafe. Excellent. All right. Well, board, this is also an action item.
Move that we adopt the MOU with the city of Ellensburg and Central Washington University.
I second.
Tasha has moved that we adopt the memorandum of understanding with the city of Ellensburg and the school district in Central Washington. And Madeline has seconded. Board, any discussion? Then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the memorandum has been approved. The last business item, we have the levy certification resolution.
Yes, and this is something that is a routine part of the process of being able to officially certify the levy so that we're able to collect those funds starting in January. Moving forward, if you look at that first paragraph, it really outlines and especially section 1A outlines the amount that we would be receiving within this next, as the levy rolls forward. And if you have any questions, I think Kim is on Zoom to answer those questions. But again, this is something that's just part of the regular process in certifying the levy. So I recommend adoption of this resolution.
Thanks, Ginger. Board, any questions? If there are no questions, again, this is an action item.
I move that we adopt the levy certification resolution.
I second.
Okay, Mike has moved that we adopt the levy certification resolution and Madeline has seconded. Board, any discussion? If there is no discussion, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. That resolution has been adopted. So board, that takes us into policy. Okay, thanks. That brings us into policy. We have 3 second readings. So those will be action items for this evening. And then we have 4 first readings of policies. So Ginger, you want to walk us through?
Yes, so this is our second reading of policy 2110, transitional bilingual services. We discussed this one last time. And so we're just recommending adoption of this policy.
Thanks, Ginger. Board, any last questions or conversations before we consider action?
I move that we adopt policy 2110.
A second.
All right, Madeline has moved that we adopt policy 2110 and Mike has seconded. Board, any discussion? And I'll call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we have adopted policy 2110. Next, we have policy 3116.
Hey, we looked at this policy last time, making some of those adjustments for student and foster care. And this is a recommendation of adoption of this policy.
Thank you, Ginger.
I move that we adopt policy 3116.
I second.
Okay, Madeline has moved that we adopt policy 3116 and Mike has seconded. Board, any discussion? If there is not, I will call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we have adopted policy 3116. Last policy for second reading is 5610.
We looked at this one last board meeting too, and we're recommending adoption of policy 5610 for substitute employment.
Thank you, Ginger.
I move that we adopt policy 5610 regarding substitute employment.
I second.
Mike has moved that we adopt policy 5610 and Madeline has seconded. Board, any discussion? Then I will call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have adopted policy 5610. So now we go to our first readings.
Yes, so this is a first reading of policy 1610, conflicts of interest. And basically, if you had a chance to look at this policy, it's just outlining what would need to happen if a board member, if the district decided to purchase something that a board member was associated with, what the limitations or parameters would be for that, as well as if you had a spouse or a family member work for the district. And there were just
Okay. For those of you on Zoom, thank you for getting back in. Our computer just completely shut down and we lost you. So we have not moved anywhere. We haven't, there was no actions that we were taking anyway. We are just starting the review of the first reading of the policies. We are not voting on them. The board has looked at the policy. So we're on policy D, 5D, first reading of policy 1610. The board at this point had no other questions for this, but Jonathan, we lost you in the Zoom. Just wanted to verify, did you have any questions or concern about policy 1610?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Then we will move to the next first reading of policy 3117.
yes, and this one was also encouraged, and it basically, I think, just gives some more support and leeway for students who come to us out of institutional education facilities. Personally, I look at these and I think it's really supportive of students, and I think I would recommend adoption of it. It's one that's encouraged by WASDA.
Again, thank you, Ginger, for bringing this to the board, and the board has had time to review these. Any conversations, any questions to have at this point? No? All right, then we'll go to the next one. First reading of policy 1225, school director legislative program.
Yes, and this one was discretionary. And if you look at it, I think the board should look at this one pretty carefully because it does put more requirements on board members, I think, for more time being put into legislative actions. I think in general, there's some good suggestions in there, but I also acknowledge that our board members all have full-time jobs and are already volunteering a lot of hours. So but because it was discretionary and because it had to do with board members, I thought it was just important to bring it to you and let you look at it and see if this would be something that you'd be interested in.
Thank you, Ginger. Did anyone from the board have questions at this point for the first reading of this policy? Any questions? Okay. All right, then we've got one more. So policy 2012, board officers and duties of board members.
Yes, and this one was also a discretionary one by WASDA, and it kind of dovetails on the other one because if you do the red line that's in this one, it's just basically emphasizing the importance of the ledge reps to attend the WASDA conference and putting it in writing as part of the board members' duties. So again, it's something to consider because it had to do with board members. I thought it was important to bring it in front of you.
right. Thank you, Ginger. Board, any questions or comments about this policy? All right, excellent. And just as a reminder, board, if you have questions before the next board meeting, be sure to send those in advance to Ginger so she can respond to any questions you might have. We can always discuss it at the next board meeting, but it will be usually, it's typically we're putting it on as an action item unless a board member poses something different. So yeah, okay. All right, then that'll take us to board reports. So Tasha had to leave, so there is no teaching and learning report there. Next, we have the Bond and Capital Projects Committee update. Do we have an update?
Mike, would you like to update them?
Yeah, so we met 2 weeks ago. You know, thanks to Randy and Kelly and a few others that helped compile the list, we have a little bit better understanding of the priority items that are definitely needed to be taken care of. There's still a lot of things on the list, so trying to have a good discussion of, you know, what the district's going to be able to, or what the committee will be able to suggest to the district to take care of and stuff. But yeah, there's, I think 4 of us made it there. And so it was good to see all the different items though that really need to be worked on in the district, and kind of goes to show that there's still a lot that needs to be done. So
We also put out 2 surveys. We did a survey to all of our principals and administrators to share with what they thought would be prioritized. And so we filtered through that feedback and put that in front of the committee and and for people that didn't go, and we have all those notes are posted on our website, so anybody from the community can look at it. We sent those spreadsheets to the people who weren't able to come, so they're able to do it, to give their input. And then we also sent a survey to all of our staff and parents and said they could, you know, weigh in on that too. And we got some really good suggestions around that. And we also presented those. And so we're asking our members of the committee to kind of put down what would their top 10 be if they, could choose. We had them colored. In color were the ones that we just have to do. They're, you know, not an option not to do, but there were plenty to choose from that were possibilities. So, and as Mike just tagging on to what you said, you know, there's just a lot of different things to choose from.
And keeping in mind with that list that the, I'm sorry, Randy, House Bill 1257 is sooner rather than later. I mean, I think by the end of 2027 is when it's all needs to be done. So.
All right. Yep. Excellent. Thank you for that update. Okay. Last reports for me. I have no report for the board chair, so that will take us right into public comment. So thank you, Leslie, if you can get us set up for that. So tonight, the board will allot up to 60 minutes of total time allotted for public comment this evening. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes of time. The board is not obligated to provide additional public comment to accommodate everyone in attendance, and that includes in Zoom. The board is not obligated to respond to questions or challenges made during the public comment period, and the board's silence will not signal agreement or endorsement of any speaker's remarks. In my capacity as the board president, I may terminate an individual's remark when it is the allotted time has passed. I may also interrupt or terminate any speaker who is making uncivil comments. Uncivil comments include, but are not limited to, obscene comments, comments that are defamatory towards another person, or commentary that is an unwarranted invasion of privacy. The board reserves the right to have anyone removed who refuses to adhere to the rules and creates a material or substantial disruption of the meeting. Personal matters are generally private and administrative in nature. Constructive criticism can be helpful, but at the same time, the board has confidence in its staff and programs and will act to protect them from unwarranted criticism or disruptive interference. Complaints or concerns received by the board or any board member will be referred to the superintendent and will not be considered or discussed by the board in this setting. I'd ask that you respect staff members' privacy and consider putting any concerns you have in writing if they pertain to a personal matter. The board can then review and forward those to an appropriate administrator. All right, so individuals in person who are here tonight wishing to be heard by the board, please make sure that you have signed up to speak. And those of you on Zoom, make sure that you've added your name to the document in the Zoom chat box. If you're unable to do this, individuals may be recognized within Zoom by using the icon or emoji to show you're raising your hand for public comment. Once the board calls on an individual, will identify themselves by stating their name and address for the record. Individuals will proceed to make comments within 3 minutes. Leslie, are we ready? We're very close. Okay, perfect. We will start with those that are here in person. And Leslie, as soon as you're ready, go ahead and call the first person. Okay, Kevin.
Kevin Dwight, 402 South Quartz Mountain Drive here in Ellensburg. Board, thank you. First off, I guess, Mr. Rowley, thank you for attending, and then Ms. Woods as well, and Superintendent Haber for attending the Veterans Day Assembly today. That was nice to see a board presence there today. And thank you for the student report. That was nice to hear as well. Sometimes hard at times to hear, but good reports. And I'm curious to take a look at that data myself. I'm going to talk to you tonight, both as a Ellensburg High School teacher, but as well as the association president. And just a couple of things. The report that the student shared about kind of some of the survey information at the high school did really illustrate to me some of the common goals of both students and staff. And I think we do have some good work to do. As not only a leader in the classroom, as a teacher, but also a community volunteer and community organizer, I do find that my goal is to create relevance and connectivity, not only within my work as a teacher, but also as a leader and then within the community. And the goal is to really move students, as was mentioned, from really a kind of a fear-based economy to an intrinsic economy where we allow them to kind of make that personal growth enough wherever they may have that growth, whatever time they have that growth, to that point where they're wanting that learning for themselves because they see the relevance. And so I just wanted to speak to that specifically. And so when staff are adapting to changing students, it can be equally as difficult. And I think what we heard tonight was that students are finding it sometimes equally as difficult to re-engage in learning now that there's been a change and we're shifting back. And like students, what I'm feeling when I survey my membership, when I talk to teachers, because I do the same thing that student leadership does, is I go out and I talk to the people that I represent, and I ask them, what is it that is affecting you? What is it that you're feeling? And for a while, I was thinking that it was burnout, what I was reading about, but I think I'm not accurate with that description of burnout. In fact, what I think it is demoralization. And that has a negative connotation, and it is definitely not positive, but I also can't put my finger on exactly the one thing or the myriad of things that might be demoralizing our teachers, because when I talk to each of them, it's different. And it's not all teachers by any means, but just like a population of students are feeling this way, so are our teachers, who are humans, just like our students. And so what I would ask the board is to think about, how do we collect data? How do we ask not only our clientele, our students, our community, but also our staff, what it is that we can do to affect and change programs? Now, just a quick shout out to President White as well this evening. Thank you for asking 2 weeks ago about how to celebrate staff. Ms. Superintendent Hubbard and I have spoken about that, and we have some ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in person? All right, so we will switch to Zoom. Is there anyone that has signed up in the Zoom? Okay, so those of you that are tuning in on Zoom, make sure that we don't have anyone signed up. So you need to quickly signify with the emoji that you're raising your hand, or otherwise we will assume there is no one here for public comment. So looking real quick just to see if there's anyone in Zoom that was wanting to do a public comment. Leslie, you're not seeing anyone, are you? Me either. All right. Then we will close public comment. So next up, we would have, under new business, we have proposed items for future consideration. Does anyone have anything? Okay. Looks like we do not. So that takes us to meeting closing. So do we have an executive session tonight? All right, we do not have an executive session. So anything for board calendar?
Just a reminder, we do have our WASDA conference next week and just want our public to know that. And we'll put the same, I'll ask Leslie to post the same notice that we did last time so that our public knows that we'll all be going to the conference in Spokane. And Leslie will send you some more information. You should have the app. It's helpful to have that on your phone. It pretty much gives you all the information. Right now, Jason, you and me we're both signed up to go to the law conference, and Mike and Tasha and Jonathan will be going to the conference around belonging. And I figure we can move back and forth if we need to. And then on Friday, we have a choice of different conferences to go to, although we do have some slots because board members now are required to have a certain amount of equity training. And so we can talk about that more, when we get there, who wants to go to what session. And in the afternoon on Saturday, we did sign everyone up for there's a really good one on school finance. And I thought, with some of the budgetary reallocations that we need to look at for the next year, it would be good for us to go to that together. I know I need to be back in town with Gallery 1. There's an opening of the Yakima Canyon Interpretive Center, and I've been invited to come to their gathering for that just to celebrate it, and would really like to attend that. So on a Saturday, and still to stay until 4, we may, leave just a little bit sooner.
Good.
So I can be back for that.
Okay.
And the hard news is that we have to leave at 5 a.m. on Thursday. So lots of coffee.
I'm usually up.
Not too happy.
I'm usually already up by then, so that's not a problem for me.
Okay.
All right, great. Okay.
All right. And we'll send the directions. What we'll do is we'll meet at the bus garage area. I have a key to the gate. We'll go in and we can park our cars inside the gate.
Okay.
And we lock them up over during that time. So.
Perfect. All right. Anything else for board calendar? I think we're all looking forward to that. Okay. Any clarification and next steps? Are there? Yes. So those of us that are here, please don't leave. We've got some documents to sign, and that will take us to adjournment, which I do need someone to.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All right. And for the record, Mike has moved that we adjourn, and Madeline has seconded. So we are now adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone. Good night.